Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're going to talk about the beautiful Cycnodes Jumbo Puff. My variety is Taiyoung, but it's not very different from the standard one. So as you can see, we are dealing with a beautiful yellow orchid right here. It belongs to the Catasedae group of plants, of orchids actually, and you'll find more information about the parentage and all of that in the description below if you're interested. I would rather talk about the orchid herself. Now this orchid I purchased about 2 months ago for my birthday, and it came without flower spikes. I did have a few nodes that were swelling up, and I presumed they would turn out to be flower spikes, and they did. It took about 2 months for the flower spikes to mature and be able to bloom, and as you can see, I do not have the most extraordinary display on this orchid, partly because let me just show you a little bit the medium. So this is the medium this orchid came in. The roots are almost all completely dead. They're kind of mushy. And she's starting to produce another new growth. This orchid didn't really have any dormancy, so I didn't really stop watering it. If I did, as you can see, the pseudobulb would start to shrivel. There are a few live roots right here. So this is one of those catasedae which really didn't want to take any break from me. It's not uncommon, it does happen, and it kind of has to do with environment, and particularly with the Cycnodes, the Mormodes actually, hybrids, you don't necessarily have a long dormancy or a dormancy at all. My Millennium Magic did not take any dormancies, so that's not uncommon. And this one didn't really take any dormancy, it lost the leaves, as you can see, and the flower is actually opened after the leaves fell. This is very normal for Catasedae orchids. If you are not acquainted to them, they are deciduous orchids, and sometimes in the fall or winter they will lose all of their leaves. They will bloom in between or before or after they lose their leaves. It's always different with these orchids, but eventually they will lose their leaves. Now let's talk a little bit about the flower. Now the thing that I've observed with mine, and I'm not sure if it happens with all of them, maybe it's something particular to this Taiyoung variety that I have, the petals tend to drag backwards. I cannot say I enjoy the straight all that much, but some of the flowers do seem to remain a little bit straighter. I'm not entirely sure how this orchid is supposed to look like. So from the front, it doesn't necessarily look all that pretty, but if we take a look from the profile, the flowers look really similar to birds in my opinion. Many people do associate the Catasedae flowers with some sort of bird or maybe a swan neck or something of the sorts, but with this display you can see it really does look like a bird in flight, and that's quite appealing to me. So if I look at the flower from a side, it's beautiful. If I look at it from the front, not so much. I have to say I prefer the Cycnodes Wine Delight a little bit more than this display, but it's not disturbing. It's really beautiful. Now for a few days, almost a week, this orchid had no fragrance for me, and I heard that the Jumbo Puff is actually really fragrant. And then I started to read on the internet somebody else had this issue, and what they thought was the fact that the orchid didn't get enough sunlight. So I did a little experiment. I took my orchid from its place where it had bright light but no sunlight, not that much. I put it in sunlight, and what do you know? It is fragrant right now. And you guys, the fragrance is really beautiful. I'll give it, it's not a strong fragrance. If you have the Cycnodes Wine Delight and you're expecting something like that, it's not gonna be like that. At least on mine, at least in my conditions, I can tell you that the Cycnodes Wine Delight is hard to equal in fragrance and in strength, or actually to overcome. This does not really come that close, but the fragrance is there, and it's really sweet. Unlike the Cycnodes Wine Delight, I don't know why I compare them so much. Well, that's my reference point, let's say. So unlike that orchid, the fragrance of this one is not so medicinal. It's really sweet, not necessarily like honey, maybe some sort of syrup. It does have a slight artificial aura to it, if you will, but it's not really pharmaceutical as I would describe the Wine Delight. And by the way, that is a great hybrid. If you want to get into Catasedae, start with the Wine Delight. It will not disappoint you, it will not make you give up Catasedae. It's such an easy grower. The main idea with that orchid is to give it really bright light so you get a lot of flowers. That's what I did, and don't be afraid of female flowers, because that orchid, as far as I read, cannot produce female flowers. It is a hybrid, man-made hybrid, and it's not prone to having female flowers. I don't think I've ever saw a Cycnodes Wine Delight with female flowers. Might be wrong, but it's not that easy to obtain them. So give it bright light, Calia light, and you'll have a great display of blooms with the Cycnodes Wine Delight. Now I'm starting to think the Jumbo Puff is the same. Maybe it does require more light than I gave it, provided I only have it for 2 months or 2.5 months. I think more sunlight, even filtered, would do great for this orchid, and I can guarantee that it will do great for the fragrance as well. Okay, I just went in for a sniff. It's a lovely fragrance, but it's not powerful. I really needed to stick my nose into the flower and feel it, if you will, slightly vanilla-ish, but it's a weird vanilla. Anyway, it's sweet, it's syrupy. I think it's the type of fragrance which is easily liked, so I'm happy it finally smells. As a plant, you can see this has really large and thick pseudobulbs, even more so than the Cycnodes Wine Delight, and the flowers are bigger as well. If you take a close look at the flowers, you will see that there is a little bit of a difference in coloration between the lip and the petals. The petals have a slight green to them. Maybe they're not quite an attractive yellow, but the lip is really gorgeous. It is very, very waxy. It looks like a bird's tail, really. And of course, this is the type of plant that ejects pollen. So when you try to smell it, be careful around the pollen area or you might trigger it. Usually the trigger is somewhere behind the pollen, up the neck somehow. I don't really want to trigger them right now because they don't have a lot of blooms, but I did catch it on film. I'll link you down below with the Cycnodes Wine Delight. It's the funniest thing because the pollen is ejected with quite a bit of force. You'll be surprised. Some catasetums are more prone to this ejecting pollen. All you need to do is just shake them a little bit and they will eject the pollen. This one, not so much. I mean, you can do this to the flower and it will not eject the pollen. It just has a particular spot somewhere on this column here. If you touch it, it will eject pollen. So be careful how you smell it because after it ejects pollen, in a day or two, the flower completely melts, it fades away, and that's that. Now, I didn't have this orchid for long enough, but from what I read, it is one of those easy catasetums, not really pretentious, not really fussy about external conditions, and so on. So this year, I will get more friendly with this guy. I'll start to learn him, but I think it is an easy grower and a low demanding plant as long as you water it. It's not a rare orchid, so you most probably will find it in orchid nurseries, both online and local orchid nurseries, if you have such thing. I don't. I purchased mine actually from Poland, from Orchid Garden. It was a good looking plant. I'm not a fan of the medium, but that's not necessarily the orchid nursery's fault. My Cycnodes Wine Delight did arrive in that type of moss as well, simply because this orchid needs a lot of water in the summertime, and the best medium to provide this water for commercial nurseries is sphagnum moss. So I cannot really say anything about that. Because it stays so moist, the medium decomposes really, really fast. I do repot my catasetum orchids once a year anyway, and also cut away the old roots, so I'm not really complaining. But yeah, in the springtime or whenever this orchid decides to shoot out a new growth, oh, if I'm not mistaken, no, it does have a new growth already. So when this orchid is done with her flowers, I will be repotting it, and we'll see in the following year if more light and more fertilizer will yield better flowers and better fragrance. So alrighty guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for daily orchids and plants videos, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye! I think the time to repot my IKEA Nelly Eilers has finally come. Let me show you what I discovered today. That's a brand new root poking through right there. And I really cannot wait to remove this decomposing medium from my orchids. But yeah, we'll see how these guys will do. I do have 2 more Nelly Eilers right here, but I can never have enough Nelly Eilers, can I?